AI tools for genealogy. I know nothing about genealogy. So the fact that we found that Bonnie, who is one of our premium members, is an expert and she offered to do the topic of AI. She is an expert. She teaches a class called DNA Kindergarten, fun name. And she is a board member of Investigative Genetic Genealogy, solving cold cases. All right, let's bring her on here because
Okay.
I know I'm curious, Bonnie, if you saw the same news item I saw last night about the Hurricane Katrina, and there's been a missing person ever since Hurricane Katrina went through. Her husband lost her in the floods and never knew what happened to her. And through DNA testing, they found that another grave did held his wife. And I thought, I wonder if Bonnie was involved in that. That's the kind of thing you do, right?
Yeah. I wasn't involved in that particular one, but there are mainly law enforcement that works with genealogists in order to use the DNA of unidentified remains or a victim of a crime. And they will use that DNA along with genealogy to build a family tree and identify the person that is unknown. And it's been a real game changer for law enforcement and also for identifying bones, remains that have been 20, 80 years old. I think the oldest one at this point has been someone from like 1850 that the bones were found in a cave.
Wow. But you do standard family tree genealogy also, right?
Um, yes, I've been doing that, since the early 80s and just building out family trees, using all the new tools. I love the tech stuff, obviously, with you guys. And so many things have made it so much easier to do genealogy with the technology that's become available. But when DNA came about, it was like getting a whole new record. And in the world of genealogy, we say that the 1890 census would be the best thing that could happen because it was destroyed in a fire. And DNA was sort of like getting a copy of the 1890 census. It was a revolution for genealogy and being able to have an entire new record type to research.
Wow, interesting. It's all yours. Thank you, Bonnie.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm excited to share this with you. I've been an enthusiast for genealogy for a long time, but I really got excited when I saw the AI tools. So for today, we're just going to talk about a few basics about genealogy so that we can kind of level set. And then I want to introduce you to some of the AI tools. And I'm going to go through specifically with the tool called ChatGPT and demonstrate how we use that in genealogy. But what we're talking about today can be used with any of these tools for any subject, as Chris showed you in her quick tip. And then I want to go through 4 demonstrations of using the tools. And I want to touch a bit on the ethical considerations for genealogy or formal research like we might be doing for a client, as well as I've given Chris a handout that she can share with you of additional resources on this topic.
Okay, I'll
So,
put all
what's genealogy? Well, it's the study of your family history. So, you may just look at your history from 1950 forward, or you may want to find out about your history from the 1550s forward. It's tracing the lines of descent. And traditionally, it was what was called straight on back, where you would do only direct ancestors. But in the more recent decades, we've been looking at our cousins, the collateral lines. And that's been possible to a large part to identify these distant cousins by analyzing relationships with DNA. And that's a whole nother topic. My DNA kindergarten program is on the BYU University site for free. And you can go through that program to see how we use DNA for analyzing our relationships to our different cousins. We have a lot of different tools that we use in genealogy. You're probably familiar with these. Records that we have are the censuses, the most recent one being the 1950 census in the United States, the 1921 census in England and Canada. And we also have birth and marriage and death records. The thing that's become so easy for folks to do genealogy is that many of these records have been digitized and they're available online. So you can kind of do everything from home, although there's still a need to go to the archives and go to the libraries. Much of the material is available online. And this is because companies like FamilySearch.org and Ancestry.com have taken upon themselves to digitize this information. That is their business. And while you can build free trees on Ancestry, you do need to pay in order to access the records. So both of them are a place where you can build trees. And it's our family trees that we're really interested in having documented. There's been studies done that have shown if children know more about their family and their history, they have a better attitude toward life, they do better in school. And so family tree building is something that is not only a good hobby, but it's also a good educational opportunity for you and your grandkids. This thing called artificial intelligence has come on to the scene in the last couple of years. This is a definition I found that I thought was helpful. They're computer systems is what artificial intelligence is. But they're capable of doing these really complex conversation with you, things that only humans could do. So it can do reasoning. If you get it a bunch of facts, it can analyze those facts. It can make decisions based on the information it's provided and solve problems. So they are very revolutionary tools for us compared to what we've had to use in the past. Now, there are different kinds of tools. Chris mentioned Gemini from Google. The initial one and the current leader is called ChatGPT 4o, the O standing for Omni. They're not very good at naming some of these tools, and it's from a company called OpenAI, and that's the one I'm going to demonstrate for you today. However, all of these work in a very similar fashion. Another one you might have heard about is called Copilot. It's from Microsoft. It's been integrated into all the Microsoft Office platforms and into Edge, the Microsoft browser. And the reason is it is also based on ChatGPT because Microsoft has a major stake in the ChatGPT OpenAI product. Another one you might not have heard about is called Claude. It's from a company called Anthropic. It is differentiated in that it can handle much larger volumes of data for analysis. So where ChatGPT may look at a couple pages of a document, Claude can look at almost an entire book. Another one you'll see is called Perplexity. And it's kind of a smorgasbord of the different chat AIs. And it gives you access to some functionality of the other GPTs. And it is available, all of these are available in a free version as well as a subscription version at different levels to get more functionality. There's a couple of other ones you may have heard of. Dolly is also integrated in ChatGPT, but it's also a standalone chat. And what it does is generate images, as Chris showed where she was generating the image of the cats. A more sophisticated version of generating images is called Midjourney. It runs within the Discord platform, and it can do some absolutely amazing images, very realistic to the point where it's kind of difficult these days to tell what's been AI generated and what hasn't been. There's a lot of different AI tools for genealogy that don't require actually using any of these GPTs. The ones I'd like to talk to you about right now that I think those of us with a fascination with photos is one from a company called MyHeritage. They have a family tree platform as well as many records digitized, but they're really a leading edge in using technology, and they have a product called Reimagine. And that product is a photo scanner and an AI photo enhancer. This is from MyHeritage, and it will do photo scanning. It does this, the ability of breaking up pictures when you're scanning scrapbooks or photo albums and saves them for you. But it also has this functionality of it'll enhance the resolution of your photos. It will colorize black and white photos. It'll fix all the scratches and creases. And this last one down here is a little bit creepy, but it will animate photos for you. It will create, as you can see this gentleman doing He's blinking and turning his head and smiling at you. They have recently come out also with a different tool that will allow you to feed it voice recordings, and you can have a conversation with your ancestor. A really different kind of tool to use with your photos. Another thing that's available, I mentioned ancestry.com. They took the 1950 census, which comes out every 10 years. It's released, well, every 72 years. So the 1950 census was released a couple years ago. And they used some proprietary AI handwriting capabilities to create an index of that census, which was millions of people. And they did it within 2 months. When they had done this of the 1940 census many years ago, it took them almost 6 months using volunteer transcribers to create the index. So you can see AI has a huge potential to make information available to us. The third one I want to point out to you is from FamilySearch.org, and they call it full text search. They've taken their US land and probate records, that is, records of wills and last testaments, a huge collection of all these records in the United States from all 50 states, and they've applied AI technology to it to be able to do full text searches. So I can look for my surname in that collection, and there is no index, but it will go through the collection and look for the occurrences of my surname. I was surprised to find where my third great grandfather on my father's side had been a witness to the will of the third great grandfather on my mother's side. Our families had known each other. It's amazing what you can discover when you have these AI tools integrated into the services of some of these companies. Okay, so what exactly can we do with these AI tools? Well, there's 4 things I like to cover. You can summarize information. So you can feed it data and it will condense and distill that down. So if you don't want to read a long article from the Atlantic, you can feed that article and ask it to give it the top points in from the writing. It can also extract and pull information out of supplied text. So I can give it an obituary and ask it to list information from that obituary for me in a table. You can transcribe information. So you can ask it to look at an image and get the text out of it, similar to the way some of the Google Lens does, but on a much greater scale. And finally, as Chris demonstrated, you can generate images. You can also generate stories by giving it a theme or giving it something you've written and ask it to write it in a particular style, like for a 5th grader or for a high schooler. So it's good for creative writing. So let's walk through how you can use one of these tools, the ChatGPT from OpenAI. So you go to this website and you click on Start Now. You will create an account using your email address and assign yourself a password. Once you've done that on your computer, I suggest that you bookmark it so that you can get to it quickly whenever you need to when you're working on your computer. The other thing you can do is you can download it from either Apple Store or the Play Store, and you can use the one that has the symbol for ChatGPT. I'll show you that in a moment, and download it to your phone. And I find it useful to have on my phone and to ask questions of it when I'm out and about. So once you've got it downloaded, either on your phone or your computer or both, you'll see what looks like this. It's the ChatGPT window. And you're kind of like, what do I do with this? It's just kind of a blank screen. Make sure if you're doing it on your phone that you downloaded the one that has this symbol shown in the middle here. There's some copycats that try to mislead you. So you want to make sure you get the one from OpenAI. Now this screen, to navigate it, up in the upper left-hand corner, there is a little pencil in a box. You click on that to start a new chat with ChatGPT. Over here on the right-hand side is an icon that's your profile, just showing my initials here. You can click on this icon and get a list of settings. Now, one of the settings you might want to change is for privacy. And this is one of the ethical concerns that we have with using these AIs. They are trying to continue to learn. So the information that you feed it and how you feed it is incorporated into the development of the products. So if you don't want that to happen, or if you're using sensitive information, like in my case, if I'm supplying it with information on living people for my genealogy, I will turn on the privacy setting, and it's sort of like creating an incognito window. And that way your information won't be used by the chatbot. On the left-hand side of the screen, if you don't see what I see, the list there of references, there is a slide bar that you click on and it will open this window on the left. So what it lists there is the bots that you've saved to use again. So in here, I have some genealogy related, of course, custom GPTs that people have figured out how to do a specific function, and then they've shared that GPT, saving the prompts as instructions that are always available when you're using that specific custom GPT. So you get better responses from the process. You also can explore some of these custom GPTs and look at what ones have been developed by the companies themselves, things that people frequently want to do with a chatbot. Then it'll list any of those that you've created. It assigns a title to them. You can edit it if you want, but it reminds me what I was doing with a particular chat at a particular time, and I can go back and review those chats. Now, the most important place is this one on the bottom. It's where it says Message Chat GPT. This is where you engage in the conversation with the application and you enter your prompts. You can also attach in some of the subscription-based, you can attach items as opposed to having to cut and paste information into the prompt area. So what do we mean by a prompt? Well, prompts are the way that you talk with an AI tool. And a gentleman named Stephen Little, who is what's called a computational linguist and an enthusiastic genealogist, brought AI to the genealogy world, and he now is with the National Genealogical Society teaching AI and genealogy. And he teaches that when you create a prompt, you want to include these 5 components. You want to tell the chatbot who it is, who you're talking to. So I'll say, you're an expert genealogist. You tell it what you want it to do, what its goal is going to be. You tell it the text, the information that you're going to provide it, and you can cut and paste text in, or you can attach them as documents. You then give it the task, specific, detailed instructions on what you want it to do. And then you tell it how you want that information shared. You can tell it the format, do it in modern English if you're giving it something that was written a couple hundred years ago. You can ask it to display it in a certain way, as a table, for example. You can tell it the style. Talk like a valley girl to me. You can also give it a tone, be serious or be friendly or be consoling. That's the way you construct a prompt. Now, some of the things to do when you have a prompt is you want to start with a new chat window to have it using the information from your current chat, or you can go back and open a previous one and pick up where you left off. The other thing you want to do is, as you're learning this, you want to test these separate steps for each piece. So you may want to give it the role and then ask it, what do you know as a genealogist? And see if there's information that you want to add to it so it understands its role. Then you want to be able to use active verbs in the prompts. Chat GPTs, all of them, don't handle negatives very well. If you say don't do something, it gets confused and you get some bizarre responses. So instead of saying don't use last names, you could say avoid using last names. The last thing you can do is called prompt chaining. And what that is when you get a successful prompt, when you like the results, you can use and create follow-up prompts so that you chain the information and become more and more specific about what you want that prompt to accomplish. So it's good to be hyper-specific when you're creating these. To use a natural tone of voice, I like to say, think of it that you are either tutoring an employee that is not familiar with your area of expertise, or you are a student and you're asking a well-experienced professor information. So have a conversation with those 2 things in mind. Make sure you give it the formatting instructions, because usually it'll just come back with a bunch of paragraphs, and you may want that information structured differently. If you are interested in how it came up with the information, you can always ask it for an explanation of the process it used and where it got its information from. The big thing in using chatbots, buyer beware. You need to validate, double check, fact check this information because it will what's called hallucinate. I like to think of it is that it's trying to please you, just like a new employee would do, or maybe like that well-experienced professor will try and dumb things down for you. So it's important, it's particularly if you're using this information for anything that's to be published or that is to be treated as if it were factual, that you've actually double checked the information that it provides you with. So now I want to go through a demonstration. We're going to look at an article I've summarized, something I've extracted, something that we've transcribed, and then we're going to generate a picture. So now I have my chat window, and the first one I have is a summarization. So I'm scrolling down here because I've already pasted this here, and I've told this chat bot, you are an excellent writer and reviewer. Summarize the attached article. Well, Steve Little wrote an article on his blog called AI Genealogy Insights, and he titled it Avoiding Extremism, the Importance of AI Use and Disclosure in Genealogy. Well, it sounds interesting, but I don't really have time to read it. So I asked the chatbot to summarize the article and list the 4 key points. I then did a Control A on the blog to copy all, and then Control C. And then I did a Control V and I pasted it here. And that's what you see here is I pasted the entire blog into the message prompt area. And so when I hit this arrow, I hope this works, it's thinking and it will come back. You see the little down arrow. So you want to scroll down and it gives me the 4 key points of this article. The importance of AI use and disclosure, balancing extreme positions, not disclosing its use at all, or being unable to use AI at all in genealogy. And it suggests a middle ground, which he calls the human rule, which says if you would tell someone that you used a human being, another person, to create your output, then you should reveal that you used AI to create information as well. But the 4th point being is that it's going to get integrated, and so we need to make these decisions. You saw how quickly that was done. So that's summarization. Another one here is extraction. So here I have, and you can see a little picture of it. I already attached it, my grandmother's obituary. And I've told the chatbot, you're a genealogist and your goal is to extract names and relationships from the obituary. I want you to make a table listing the names found in the obituary in the first column and the relationships of the deceased person in the second column. And in the third column, quote the source of the relationship. You can see there I've been very specific in the task that I want it to perform. I also tell it then to avoid embellishment, be factual, but be friendly and concise. And so now I will hit enter and see how it translates this obituary. So the obituary says Edna Bossert, 88 of Mesa, a homemaker, died October 31st, 1998. Gives a little bit about herself and then her children. But you can see how it's gone right ahead and created a table listing her as the deceased and giving me a quote from the obituary. And then it lists each one of her sons, my father and my 2 uncles. And then it mistakenly, and I'll point this out to you, I think, let me see, Ira H. Oh, I see what it did. In the obituary, my uncle's name, he often uses H. Irvin, and it listed that as if they were 2 separate people as opposed to H. Irvin Bossert as her son. So she actually has 3 sons. And then while it didn't have any names, it lists that there were relationships identified in the obit of 15 grandchildren, 28 great-grandchildren, and 2 great-great-grandchildren. And then it will often provide you with the note. It mentions these sons without giving the full name. So it explains the mistake that it made that I can recognize by doing that verification against the obituary. This is, as you could imagine, be very helpful for a genealogist because rather than having to read through all that text, I can know that I need to go check my family tree to see, do I have 15 grandchildren? Do I have 28 great-grandchildren? And in 1998, when she passed away, were there 2 great-grandchildren? So that's an example of how it can extract information.
Hey, Bonnie, there's something I would like to ask before you go on from that example. That is way cool. What a great example of what
Yep.
AI can do for us. But the original obituary, what is that and how did you get that? It looked like it was an image or
That was in fact an image. Good catch. I could have asked it to transcribe that information literally and then cut and pasted the transcription and asked it to build a table. But in this case, because I'm using ChatGPT 4.0, which is the subscription version, I just fed it an image that I had of that obituary. Because in my family tree, I've saved images of all the obituaries. I can save it as a JPEG, I can save it as a PDF, and I'll have PDFs because it will reference where I actually found the obituary, what newspaper, that type of thing. So in this case, I just fed it a JPEG of the obituary,
now when
and it
you
was
say
able
fed it, you mean you copied it and just pasted it into the
I,
prompt
I used
field?
I used this little paper clip, and
Attach.
when
Okay.
you click on the paper clip, it gives you a choice of pulling something from Google Drive or uploading something from your computer.
Okay, I think maybe I see I've thought that that attach meant give it the link to. I had a PDF that I wanted it to evaluate, and I tried to put in a link, and it said, "Sorry, I can't do that." And okay,
Right,
so
right.
I
So
get
yeah,
it.
what they're doing is they're asking you to attach an actual document, and you can like I said, with Claude, which is one of the other ones, you can attach several chapters of a book. You could feed it the Geeks on Tour Google Photos book, and you can ask it to critique it. You can ask it to edit it. You can ask it to go through and give you all kinds of feedback on the document, and actually act like you had a personal editor for your.
Exactly. And that is, I tried to do. I don't remember which AI I was using, but it said, sorry, I can't do that. And so
Right. Many
maybe
of
I
them.
was just doing it wrong. Or maybe it was, a few months ago and now it can do it.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And the other thing is that they level up the subscriptions based on the amount of time you have to feed it information and based on the amount of material. So if you were feeding it an entire chapter and you're using one of the free ones, it may not handle that much material. It has what's called a content window, and it only allows you so much content. So if you pay for the subscription ones, you get the ability to add more content.
And what are
And
you
that's how
using here?
I'm using ChatGPT 4.0. I think it's $20 a month that I'm
Okay,
paying
so
for
you are
this.
using a premium version.
I'm using the premium version, right? Because I'd like to show you the total power, but you can do, like I said, you could have taken a transcription of this obit and gotten the same table result.
And rather than waiting to the end, I see another question that came in on chat. Can
Okay.
AI identify people in photos?
No, because just like a human being, AI can't look at a photo and tell you who that person is. Now, it may be able to identify some famous people. However, in your own photos, what it can do, and this is another thing that MyHeritage offers, is the ability to give you a time frame for that photo. It will interrogate the clothing and the scenery in a picture and give you an estimated year that that picture was taken. In fact, if you feed it a picture of a living person and tell it to create a cartoon version, it may tell you that it's not allowed to do that. There have been some restrictions put on it in order to prevent the spread of disinformation or the misuse of people's materials. But you can tell it to do something in a certain style. So I can say, create a picture for me in the style of Vincent van Gogh, and I'll get that dreamy, very colorful look in the picture that I ask it to create.
All right, cool. Well, we'll let you continue. Save the rest to the end now.
All right.
Thanks.
Now here I've attached, I haven't given it very much information. I want to show you what happens. And, but I did tell it you're an expert on death certificates from the state of New Jersey, and I wanted to transcribe this death certificate. So I fed it again an image of a death certificate, and it's going to start reading it. And here's the transcription. So it's looking at the typewritten stuff on the death certificate, and then it's trying to translate the handwritten information. So a lot of this information is something I'm going to have to go through line by line. But look at how quick. I got a list of all the information that's on that death certificate. And it got most of it correct, but it got the place of death okay. It got the person's name right, got his address correct. When it came down to translating the birthplace, it didn't do too very good a
Amazing.
job. I think he was actually born in, I think the city's called Lenhart, Germany, and he got that, wasn't able to translate that. He did get his mother's name incorrect. Again, translating handwriting can be a struggle. Did get his wife, Margaret, as the informant, and her address, which is the same as, if we look up here on his original address, they both were living at 201 Newton Avenue, where he's going to be buried and what date, who the undertaker was, and where that undertaker is located. And from it, now this is, I hereby certify as part of the pre-typed information on it, but it indicates the cause of death is lobar pneumonia with a contributory case of bronchitis. So here I can look at this information. I'm going to verify it. I'm going to validate it, but it's much easier to work with this typewritten information or to cut and paste
Really?
this and correct it where necessary and put it into a report I might be preparing for someone on a genealogy. You can see how you could do this with any document you had that you wanted to lay out the information and do some transcription of it. The last one I'm going to show you here is using ChatGPT 4.0, but it has built into it Dolly. And so I wanted it to create an image. I had found in doing my genealogy research that one of my relatives had been in the Civil War and he had died in 1864. When the Civil War transcripts of widow pensions were made available in the National Archive, you had to kind of look through them to see if you could find your Civil War veteran. And I found the record of his widow. It started in 1864. It ended in 1910, 46 years later, because she applied for the pension. And the last thing that happened was her daughter applying for a gravestone for her mother, the veteran's wife. So I wanted to have an image to tell this story. And so I told the chatbot, you're a Civil War historian. Your goal is to create an image of a Civil War Union soldier leaving his wife and two small daughters to go to war. Make the image realistic and touching. Now, images take a little bit longer to generate. We'll see how fast it comes out here. Here we go. Well, it's taking its time. And here we go. Is that a sweet
Oh,
picture? And there's the
wow.
daughter in the background and him leaving his wife. The information that I found out from this 90-page widow's pension allowed me to go back another generation on these people. I did not know who my fourth great grandparents were. These people were my third, and I was able to identify my fourth great grandparents because in the pension, they had to list information about their family. So that's an idea of what you can do with these chatbots. You can summarize things, you can extract information from it, you can transcribe information, you can create images. There is a page in the presentation that talks about what ChatGPT can and cannot do. It's not a search engine, as Chris pointed out. It's untethered from reality. It's poor at math. It's poor at negation. It is biased because the material it used was everything that has been written and recorded since we did things in writing and recorded it. And what's true about that is that what gets recorded is what is told by the victors. And so the information on the victims and the losers in our history is not as well represented in these collections. The other thing I want to share with you is the last slide I have. You'll see that you need to spend about 10 to 20 hours working with this. Using a chatbot is like learning to ride a bike. You don't read a manual and then go do something. You have to get on the bicycle and practice. So give yourself 10 to 20 hours over the next month to play with this. Open it up on your computer. Use it on your phone like I did when I had that little strange U-shaped thing on my dash of my car telling me there was something wrong. And I asked GBT, what's this thing that looks like a turkey bone on my car? And it said, oh, that's called a tire pressure monitor. And this is what it does And I said, how much will it cost to get it fixed? So that when I went into Discount Tire,
Oh,
I was able to figure out if I was going to be getting a good deal and what was really wrong with my car. So have it available to talk to. It's like having a friend. So Jim, do you want to go through some of what did they learn today?
Okay, true or
yeah,
false?
yeah.
ChatGPT is the only AI tool you need to use, or
And
you
that
can
is
use.
false. There are all these other tools, but I encourage you to use every tool and play around with them, just like you would try out different kinds of bicycles.
Okay, true or false? AI is incorporated into genealogy sites.
That's true. You don't actually need to use any of these for genealogy because the people who are offering genealogy services are incorporating AI into their own platforms.
AI can summarize, extract, transcribe, and create images from your genealogy records.
And that's true. And I hope all of you will take the opportunity to try out these things with some of your family mementos. As I mentioned, you have the handout and a list of additional resources and the references to some of the things that I linked to here. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me at bonniednagenie@gmail.com. And now, do we have any other questions?
I see one here. Are some of the free editions just as powerful?
Yes, the restriction is how many questions you can answer it, how much time you get with it, and what kind of material, the format of the material you can feed it. They don't have the paperclip, the ability to attach a document and have it read it and use it. You have to either transcribe it or get it into plain text so that you can then cut and paste it, and then it can do the same type of things with the free versions.
Very cool. And Judy is waiting for the ethics response on when to disclose results were AI generated.
Yes, and what has been recommended, the National Genealogical Society is requiring that if you use AI as if you would use other human beings, as if you had consulted a human being, then that needs to be disclosed in your research and the information that you provide. And that's the middle ground that we're trying to settle on. There are, however, several schools in education. It's a real controversy about whether or not to let students use AI and how they use AI. A good summary of some of the questions and decisions that need to be made is in a book called Co-Intelligence. It's on the additional resource handout. And it's a very accessible summary of many of the opportunities and ethical considerations that we want to think about as this tool becomes more broadly used.
Well, that was just fascinating, Bonnie. Thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
I learned a lot. That was interesting that kids who know their family history do better?
Mm,
Huh.
absolutely.
What if their family is nothing to be proud of?
That's important too, because kids can rise above or they can realize that they are not, if they criticize other people who may have had bad situations in their family, everyone has skeletons in their closet. And that can give them a better perspective on those situations.
Okay.
And the prompts are how you talk to AI is with the prompt, and that is now becoming a whole new field, prompt engineering, right? I've had to unlearn being clear and succinct, short, in asking to Google something. In searching, you
Mhm.
try to be short, and I've had to really say you can say more, talk more to it to get better results.
Laura wants to know what are the personal security risks with these chatbots and how can we handle them?
All of them
Don't put
have the
personal
ability.
information
Don't
in.
put personal information out
Yeah,
there.
don't put personal. I mean, I would love to have it summarize some of my financial information, for example, or I might upload a copy of a rental agreement or something. But I will turn on the privacy feature, which is like turning on incognito window in your browser. And then any of the information you provided or the conversation that you have will not
It
be
must be
utilized or retained. That means you can't go back to it and see it again,
it must be
but
dropping it.
you'd have to recreate it. But it does not keep the information
Because I'm not in
in
his
the chatbot or
geeks.
use it for its own
Okay.
instructions.
We're good. That was just excellent, and I look forward to more conversation in our backstage pass.